in 1888, and he was a poor farmer boy. He had his first job out of college, and if you can imagine, how many people are in sales? All right, Larry, if you could just think about this for a second. Imagine having to sell bacon, soap, and lard for the Armour Company. Would that be something exciting to do as your first job in sales after graduating college? But he didn't give up. He didn't stop there. He knew that there was a potential that one day, if he didn't give up hope and if he kept his hope alive, that he too would achieve his success and dreams. After saving about $500, he quit his sales job in 1911 in order to pursue a lifelong dream of being a lecturer, and he ended up attending the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. But he found little success as an actor. Well, after his first production ended, he found that he returned to New York, he was unemployed, he was nearly broke, and he was living in the YMCA on 125th Street. But despite that, he kept hope alive. In keeping hope alive, he finally got the idea that he should teach public speaking. Teaching public speaking, he convinced the manager of the Y to allow him to take, he was going to give the manager 80% of the proceeds. He'd only take 20% if he could teach public speaking. And in his first engagement, he sold out of materials. What we found out about him going further was that his crowning achievement was that Simon & Schuster published How to Win Friends and Influence People, and the book was a bestseller at its debut in 1936. By the time Carnegie died, he had sold 5 million copies in 31 languages, and that there had been 450,000 graduates in his Dale Carnegie Institute. So despite his meager beginnings, we find that he persevered despite the odds, he kept hope alive, and he achieved his dreams. One of the other people that I wanted to talk to you about for a few moments is a gentleman by the name of Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez. He was in Vietnam, and he too started out very meager beginnings. At 2 years old, his father died. At 7 years old, his mother died, and then he and his sister and brother had to be raised by his grandmother and his grandfather and his aunt with his other 8 cousins. So imagine having to be raised in that type of environment. Well, Mike, the first job that I understood that he had was he shined shoes at a local bus station. The next job that he had was working at a tire shop. And after working at that tire shop, at 15, Merrill, he dropped out of high school. And so he had to work to be able to help to take care of his family. But what I was most impressed with was on May the 2nd, 1968, while he was in the United States Army, he was dropped into a drop zone. He was in a place called Loc Ninh, Vietnam. And there was a 12-man Special Forces reconnaissance team that had gone there to do some reconnaissance. In the process of doing that reconnaissance, they began to take heavy enemy fire. And after 3 unsuccessful extractions, he was sitting in the TOC, which was the Tactical Operations Center. As he was sitting there, he heard the radio call come in. And despite the fact that he wasn't, supposed to go out there, he jumped on the helicopter, despite what he knew they were going through, and braved the storm of the fire and the bullets and the other thing that were going on. He jumped on to help to go and save those people. And the story goes on that realizing that all the team members were either dead or wounded and unable to move to a pickup zone, he jumped off the helicopter, ran about 75 meters, despite the fire and the other things that were being shot in, the shrapnel wounds and everything that he was experiencing to his face and body. And he carried and dragged half of the wounded men back to the helicopter. After the enemy's fire intensified, he hurried to recover the bodies and the classified documents of the people that had been killed there that day. And what touched me the most was what President Ronald Reagan said in his Medal of Honor in February 24th of 1981. The citation reads, "Sergeant Benavidez's gallant choice to join voluntarily his comrades who were in critical straits, to expose himself constantly to withering enemy fire, and his refusal to be stopped despite numerous severe wounds, saved the lives of 8 men. His fearless personal leadership, tenacious devotion to duty, and extremely valorous actions in the face of overwhelming odds were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect the utmost credit on him and the United States Army." Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to submit to you today that in life, it will not always be easy, that we will face challenges. I'll also ask you this question. When it's all said and done, John, what will be the things that people will say about you? What's the story that they will read concerning John? Let me ask you this question, Larry. When your story is written, what will be written that will inspire someone else who's reading your story years after you're gone? These are the things that we've got to ask ourselves as we attempt to keep hope alive. Mike, what I'd like to submit to you today is, again, it won't always be easy. It will take courage. I'm convinced, William, that no matter what, you won't always be dealt the best hand. But I am determined to believe that inside of each one of us that sit in this room, there is an innate ability to achieve even your wildest dreams, despite the challenges, despite the adversities that you face. That just like Master Sergeant Benavidez, when he jumped off of that helicopter, despite the challenges, despite the things that he was going to have to face, despite the shrapnel wounds in his face, in his back, in his arms, and in his legs, despite those things, he still persevered to achieve his dreams. And just like Dale Carnegie, who started out and his first job was selling soap and selling bacon into country farmers and other people who probably didn't buy a lot of his material, that I am convinced, though, that he persevered despite the odds. And now he had 450,000 graduates from his academy. He wrote a letter to us that we can read and be inspired and keep our hope alive. Finally, allow me to read this one story to you. Think, believe, dream, and dare. An 8-year-old boy approached an old man in front of a wishing well. He looked up into his eyes and asked, "I understand you're a very wise man. I'd like to know the secret of life." The old man looked down at the youngster and replied, "I thought a lot of times in my lifetime, and the secret can be summed up in 4 words. The first is think. Think about the values you wish to live your life by. The second is believe. Believe in yourself based on the thinking you've done about the values you're going to live your life by. The third is dream. Dream about the things that can be, based on your belief in yourself and the values you're going to live your life by. The last is dare. Dare to make your dreams become reality, based on your belief in yourself and your values." And with that, Walter E. Disney said to the little boy, "Think, believe, dream, and dare." I'll leave you with a quote by Dale Carnegie. He said that the most important things in life are actually accomplished by people who, despite hope, continue to persevere. Thank you.